What is up, everybody, and welcome to ITG Daily, the show that brings you the hottest in gaming news. This is April 12th, Scott, already. How was the weekend, man?
Oh, it's flying by. What weekend?
Yeah, we had a weekend?
It barely felt like it. It's just come and gone.
Absolutely. Don't forget, you can always be a part of our show. Join us live over on twitch.tv/theofficialitg. Hit us up on podcast services, our Discord, where there you can also submit your questions at ITG Daily. And you can find us later on streaming platforms and YouTube and Twitter, everywhere. Just hit us up at insidethegame.ca. We'll have everything linked over there for you, so you can follow all of our visual presence and our voices. Scott, hit us with the voice, because we have a sweet little topic to get started.
And it seems like there's Metal Gear in the news again.
Absolutely. Let's get going, buddy. We're talking about Metal Gear Solid IP could be being licensed out by Konami. What is happening here, Scott? My heart's pounding, man.
Yeah, that's basically the only reaction I think that fans like us could have, is just anything with the title is, this could be good news.
Absolutely. Oh my God. Okay, let's get into it. The Metal Gear franchise hasn't really been doing much since Hideo Kojima left back in 2015, but according to a new report, the IP is going to be licensed out by the publisher at some degree. That's according to a source close to ACG Gaming, which has accurately leaked a number of key events over the past few years, from Far Cry Primal to Bethesda changing the policy of review codes, that was just bizarre, to Deathloop being delayed, and a bunch of other leaks as well. Now, this is obviously just a rumor, so take it with a grain of salt, but he states, "I was simply stating I had heard from a source, the same that informed the Xbox boost, the Deathloop delayed, Bloodlines, and other stuff that had leaked about, as saying this is happening, and that Metal Gear itself was in some way up for grabs." Which then popped the discussion of Konami, obviously. Should we get excited here, Scott, for the possibility of a Metal Gear game in the future out of Konami? And also, don't forget, Metal Gear Solid is up for a possible remake, the original, over on PlayStation 5. Dude, let's break it down.
That is exciting. Just that little tidbit of information at the end. That is an exciting prospect for me.
Woo-hoo. Absolutely. Now, let's get it. Okay, Metal Gear Solid has been gone for a while. Let's face it, right? Metal Gear Survive was the last one. Nobody really wants to talk about that game. I think that was just kind of riding on the coattails of the fact that they had a Metal Gear franchise just sitting there dormant, made this Survive game, and it just didn't hit home with anybody because it wasn't really Metal Gear. Kojima leaves. Exactly, right? He starts Kojima Productions. Then, because Konami still owns the rights to Metal Gear, he produces Death Stranding, which is nowhere near what Metal Gear was. That was just like a delivery sim. And, some people like it and some people hate it. It didn't connect for me. But Metal Gear, dude, I grew up on it. I love Metal Gear. It is obviously one of my major franchises. I've got it tattooed on my arm. Metal Gear is my kind of stuff. Metal Gear 5 was a huge difference between the other past Metal Gears as well. So I do want a remake, and if Sony can land that, because you and I have been talking about this for a very long time, Scott, the fact that Metal Gear has just been sitting around dormant, and the first one definitely needs to see a remake.
I agree with that one. I have only experienced the first game as the Twin Snakes,
sure,
which is in itself not an organic remaster, really. That was kind of a reimagining in its own. So I'm not sure if this remake would take the mold of Twin Snakes or if it would be more of the original, but in any case, that is a game that I have yet to experience properly and for very, very long time. So anything with the Metal Gear Solid name on it is going to get a lot of interest.
Yeah.
Minus the Survive. I could skip over that one, but this remake would be extremely exciting. Now, there's also a thought that occurs to me is that Metal Gear 4 appeared only on PlayStation 3. Could this perhaps be a way of producing a remake or it's an original title for just the Xbox side of things. That one may be a little less likely, but I just have yet to, see anything out of Metal Gear in a long time. So it's hard for me to imagine what they would be able to create.
So, okay, I'm going to throw this out there. I don't think this is going to happen whatsoever, but you see right now, Kojima Productions is in talks with Xbox to produce something for the Xbox and presumably Game Pass, right? So we can see this happening. Apparently, it's just lined up from the lawyers now to sign a couple docs, and it's a go. What if Konami talks once again to Kojima about producing another Metal Gear? I don't see it, Scott, just because of the falling apart way back when, because it was such a world of events basically when Kojima left Konami, and things weren't exactly left on good terms either. Kojima pulled half the staff off the project and brought it with him to start his own company. So I don't see that happening, but what are the slim chance, and I'm just throwing it out there because dude, it's never going to happen. But what if that was our next Metal Gear?
that would be an absolutely hilarious turn of events. they divorce, so to speak, and still
meet up at
just
the end.
Somehow meets up. Yeah, the perfect storm to create or to keep the franchise going.
So you and I were talking off screen about this, and it was, if Konami licenses out the rights to use a Metal Gear, who does that? Who writes the story? Is it a brand new story, or are they going to do a remake like the rumored PlayStation 5 edition of the first Metal Gear? Because that's, I think, one that really needs to get done. And if they would just kind of, talk a little sweeter to me and bring me Metal Gear Solid 3, my favorite Metal Gear, I'm down for that as well.
Yeah, I think it's been enough years that a Metal Gear 3 remake would also be very, very well received.
Man, absolutely. Blue Point.
But that's a good point, because how does anybody write a Metal Gear in general? But how do you follow up the man himself? That's the question I have.
You think you've got to be rather nervous, I think, if you take on that project, right? Because those are big shoes to fill. Who can do that?
Yeah.
You see the remake master at a Blue Point, and they're doing stuff on the Sony side, so I can see them possibly coming around and working on the first Metal Gear. They're the masters when it comes to remaking anything, so that'd be I think a huge get. But when it comes to a brand new Metal Gear, who does that, dude? Who would want to take on the name of going, okay, now everybody's going to compare. When you launch a brand new Metal Gear, everybody's going to compare it to Kojima. It's hands down, right? It's just it's inevitable. You can't get away from it. So who wants to take on that project? Oh my goodness.
I can think of only one name that would possibly fill that chair, and that is George R. Martin.
That's yeah.
It might be a couple years on.
A couple years.
Have to wait.
We'll be a next gen by then.
But that might be an epic tale.
Oh man, can you imagine, dude? I actually jumped back into Metal Gear 5 there not too long ago, just because I had that Metal Gear bug. We're long overdue for something, because like we said, Metal Gear Survive just wasn't it. It didn't cut it as far as anything goes. But man, Metal Gear 5 was such I would say a different departure from the Metal Gear franchise itself, but man, 1 and 3, I think, were my all-time favorites. 1 actually got me into this industry. That's what brought me in. And
hooked right on the line there.
Oh, dude, right?
I had experienced the second one. My brother was playing that one a lot, and it just drew me right in. And then when I saw the Twin Snakes on GameCube one day, back in the days of Blockbuster, I immediately scooped it up and got super into that. Followed that up with Metal Gear 3, so that into 5. 4 is the only one I have really not experienced.
I remember 4. I remember them dropping the trailer for 4, and Snake goes up beside a statue, and he goes to blend in, and he puts his hand on on a sensor spot, and it just kind of goes into this cloak. Oh man, I remember laughing oh man, I laughed so hard watching that, and that's the Kojima little touch in there, right? Like the personality and the sense of humor that he brings to such a wacky franchise, because it is so convoluted. These stories are never easy to follow. Like, it's never clear cut. right? It's not like a point A to point B destination. It is, and you get the whole alphabet tossed at you, and you're still trying to figure it out when it's all done.
It's a super action series with an anime storyline.
Yeah, it's man, it's cool to see, but dude, that was topic 1. We still got a lot more to talk about, so let's continue on. Is Age of Mythology happening? Ahead of Saturday's Age of Empires fan event, Microsoft arranged a roundtable interview with developers from Xbox Studios and the current developers of Age of Empires series at Relic Entertainment. While the interview was mostly focused on upcoming Age of Empires 4, another game came up, 2002's Age of Mythology, a spin-off that added Age of Empires' more grounded historic history for Greek and Norse and Egyptian mythology. Someone asked if Mythology would ever get a definitive edition just like the Age of Empires series has. Quoted, I said this before and I'll say it again. I've never forgotten about Age of Mythology. It comes up all the time. Scott, are we ever going to see this? I've never actually played that. I was always on the Age of Empires side. You actually reviewed the definitive edition for us on the show.
Yes, that's right. That was quite an experience jumping back into that because it had been many, many years since I played an Age game. I didn't personally play Mythology ever, but I have seen it.
Right.
And that's the one that keeps being brought up whenever I talk about Age of Empires.
Yeah.
So I know it's maybe seems like kind of a cult following, but it is actually a very popular title. So it makes sense. It's been so many years and they're doing these different releases, the collector editions. It seems only right that we would eventually get another Mythology, but is that going to be just a remaster, repackaging, or a brand new title? I think that has yet to be seen.
No, absolutely. That was followed up by, during the actual fan event live stream on Saturday, developer Relic Entertainment revealed a few new things about its upcoming sequel, Age of Empires 4, including a look at one of the game's campaigns and its new and updated civilizations. Campaigns that place players in the middle of historic events have always been a standout focus of the Age of Empires series, and Relic is taking that idea even further with Age of Empires 4. During the developer Q&A with the press, held a few weeks before the Saturday's live stream, Relic revealed that Age of Empires 4 will feature 8 playable civilizations at launch. Just like Age of Empires 3, Relic said they will help the team focus on how to make each civilization special and will make the entire game much easier to balance. So far, Relic has announced that the Chinese, Japanese, Dela, and Mongols are all in the game for the civilizations at launch. They'll be adding more, and Scott, they're actually bringing multiplayer to this as well. This will launch in the fall on Windows and Ultimate Game Pass.
Another title on the Game Pass. This is
it's a big get, right?
It's getting to be an impressive, meme.
Yeah, well, we bring it up each and every week, almost to the point where we're talking about it daily, because we're talking about Game Pass a little bit later in the show as well, because that's coming around again. It's nonstop. So to see Age of Empires come, dude, the game looks stunning.
Yeah, it's been enough time now that there's going to be a nice upgrade jumping into a new title, and they showed off a bit of the Norman campaign, I believe, so they just wanted to give some of the action away, and It looks to be like it's going to be pretty satisfying.
No, absolutely. Let's get into what we have now is a whole whack of PlayStation news. Fans are asking for Sean Layden to come back in response to a Bloomberg report that suggests PlayStation is doubling down on blockbusters and abandoning its more creative background. Many have been sharing an old clip on social media which is talking about Sean Layden speaking about Vib Ribbon. He actually did this at a press conference. I want to say it was like, oh man, I can't remember what E3 presentation it was. But obviously that was a while ago, right? Which effectively concludes that while the PS1 Rhythm title wasn't a big seller at all, it wasn't the point. That was Sean's words. And that's followed up by a whole controversy of the new stance, which seems to be coming out of PlayStation. The fact that they really don't have a face over there right now, Scott. It's kind of, you're seeing them take a back seat. We don't see a Phil Spencer presence out of PlayStation right now. I think that's the biggest problem we're seeing with PlayStation. And then it goes on to the fact that Vib Ribbon, which one of Sean's favorite games, it's a small game, right? Like they were focused heavily on the indie side, and now this seems like they're switched that around completely and have gone right into blockbusters, triple A's kind of thing, and that's what their main focus is. Now, but if you take a look at it, they had Dreams in production for a whole generation, and then finally launched on the PlayStation 4. So they do have a bit of their quirky side still to them, but they do lack that main presence, and a lot of what I think they had started with the generation was all those little indie titles to help kind of satisfy the that gaming niche that I think they're kind of losing out on right now.
Well, yeah, and it to Sean Layden's point of it, not being the point of a great seller, it's still very important to kind of branch out and have those creative avenues, start those kind of genres before they're even formulated.
Sure.
Just look at Battle Royale. If somebody had, said that's not an idea, that will never sell. That could have prevented that entire, it's an entire genre of its own now.
Yeah.
So, and rhythm games back in the days of PlayStation 1, I don't believe were very well formulated yet. And that's an entire industry of its own now as well. So you need that kind of pioneering aspect to the company, I believe, and not having a character, so to speak, or a proper, spokesperson.
Yeah,
really hurts, I think, PlayStation in this generation, because we've had, Reggie Fils-Aimé for so long that he's associated with Nintendo.
Yep.
Xbox has gone through a few interesting people on that side, but for PlayStation, Sean Layden he's the only recognizable name that I can remember.
Well, Jack Tretton was a long time ago as well. Jack was there. He was the solid face. Sean came in for a while, and then Sean, nobody knows what happened. That's the caveat with Sean, is that he just suddenly stepped down. Why? Nobody knows. That'll be one interesting story if Jason Schreier can pull that one out over at Bloomberg to hear what the heck happened there. I don't know if we'll ever see the light of day of that story. But now, with him stepping down, we have Jim Ryan taking over, and he's not the presence like a Jack or a Sean. Even Sean was a little bit more stiff, but he was a lot more presentable, and would always be, he always seemed warm and welcoming to talk about his passion with the PlayStation and where they stood, right? And it's sad to see that there's just no face, no representation right now with PlayStation.
Yeah, I think that's a missed opportunity for them, really.
You lose out on the community there, right? Where you see right now, you see Phil Spencer growing that community over and over because he is such a welcoming face with him, and even Major Nelson talking about Xbox all the time. You have big names for Xbox who are on screen, who are on camera, who can be found in social media networks talking about their passion in the industry and what they're going to do moving forward for Xbox, where you just don't see that with PlayStation. You just see them dropping successful games, very successful games, and they're doing just fine, but they don't have that presence of warmth and inviting that or we see from Xbox right now. And I'm curious to see if they can change that around. Herman Hulst now steps in as one of the big shots over at PlayStation, and he came from Guerrilla Games. So it's interesting to see him come up, but you don't see him a lot either. You see him a little bit on Twitter and a couple other networks, but you don't really see him kind of taking the reins and holding the camera down kind of thing for PlayStation. And I'm just curious to see who's going to step in and fill that role, if at all.
Yeah, I used to not really think that it was very important, but then the characters such as, Reggie, it comes up and he's repeatedly there. He's always there to announce new things, and then certain, memes catch on relating to him, and he became kind of this funny guy. Yep. And then he really did start to pull in a community there. And it was very interesting to see that. And I think Major Nelson does the exact same thing as for the Xbox side as well. I used to not care for him too much, but now when I see Nelson on anything, I know that it's something official. This is a big release, it's something important. So it has meaning behind it, whether the role seems that important at first.
No, absolutely. Let's continue on with more PlayStation news. Scott, could Days Gone to could have had co-op. As it's becoming increasingly clear, Days Gone 2 was pitched by Sony Ben, but was never given the go-ahead. Despite the first title being profitable, it seems neither the sales nor critical reception were good enough to convince PlayStation bigwigs to make another one. Speaking as part of a stream with God of War creator David Jaffe, dude, David Jaffe is in the news a few times here today. It's interesting. I didn't realize the dude's got his own YouTube channel, but he's got insider knowledge because he's been at PlayStation for years, right? However, David Jaffe's gone. So since left the first-party developer for personal reasons, teased that the sequel would have featured a shared universe with co-op play. Ooh. Man, so Jeff Ross stated, "We want to co-op from the beginning in Days Gone, but obviously you have to make concessions for what you're going to be making as and have kind of be able to make for the first go-around." And they had plans to bring that in the second one. Dude, they could have had a shared world. It would have been a secondary mode if we had done it in the first place, or even one at all. So they're looking to possibly, we could have been into like almost like a game as a service, right? You could have had that co-op experience. You would have had Deacon trying to survive, building up a clubhouse or a crew. I think it would have been fun to be able to be in that world cooperatively and see what other horde battles could be like. You know, like there was so many opportunities here. And yeah, it didn't hit huge numbers. And I think there's actually a quote in here from Ross. Let me see. For games where you have to sell 4 or 5 million copies just to break even, there's got to be confidence in their return. Because Sony doesn't have the cash that Microsoft does, they've got to use it very intelligently, and they've got to stay focused on a diverse portfolio. So when he says diverse portfolio, I think that refers to the fact that The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2 was so successful that Days Gone, it was just kind of riding underneath those top tier over at Naughty Dog with Days Gone. It wasn't able to see the light. If The Last of Us, because when you saw The Last of Us launch and then you saw Days Gone kind of compete for that same shared space, right? So PlayStation over there goes, well, why compete with ourselves? And we'll just make one and we'll put Sony Ben on another. But it could have been so different. We know right now that Naughty Dog is also working on things like that as well for the guys over there to see what we can get for The Last of Us. But at the same time, I'm definitely curious to see what could have came out of Days Gone.
Yeah, that is a big mystery for me, being on the outside of the PlayStation market. Just looking in, I see the similarity of certain games together, and I get what they're saying about the diversity in games. I suppose it's just unfortunate now that we're talking about this in the 2020s, because if this had happened 10 years ago in the great zombie whole streak where every zombie game was being added and taken on and produced, then it wouldn't have even been a question. I think we would have had Days Gone 2 immediately.
Yeah.
And what you said about co-op is absolutely true. That would be it has the potential to be a really good experience.
Oh, it could have been huge, right? That open world from Days Gone would have been awesome to see the light of day. But we'll see what happens, because Sony now is looking like they're moving on to mobile. Amid reports that Sony Interactive Entertainment is doubling down on its hit series, a job advert has revealed that PlayStation is opening a new business unit to adapt its biggest franchises for mobile. PlayStation Studios is currently seeking to hire a head mobile to work on its San Mateo or Los Angeles office in California, where successful applicants will be responsible for developing a mobile product roadmap for a 3 to 5 year time frame. So there's a couple things that could come out of this. First of all, it tells me that we're never going to see a PlayStation Vita 2. I think that's the biggest thing. They want to captivate that mobile market, and I absolutely understand why, because it's huge. You and I touched on this last week, how big that market is.
Yeah, and it's harder to sell a whole new piece of hardware to people when everybody has a phone in their pocket already. So I can see why they would definitely want to take that route.
No, absolutely. It's definitely one they need to captivate on. I think they're kind of missing out and seeing what they're going for, but they have a 3 to 5 year roadmap that they're looking for now as well. I wonder if this could lead into like secondary screen stuff. We've seen a little bit of it dabbled in, but I jump over to Red Dead because if you had that app for Red Dead, you were able to pull it up on your phone or your mobile platform and use it as the map, and it would actually track where you are in the game. I thought it was really cool.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
I really like that. I did that for Assassin's Creed Unity.
yeah, it's man, like it's a blast to have that second feature sometimes to be able to use that. But we'll be getting like Uncharted, I'm sure, and a God of War. That's what they're looking at bringing over to the mobile market. And mobile devices now are become so powerful, so strong that it's incredible to see the technology advance so much more than what we've had in the past. That I don't doubt you can play an Uncharted game on your mobile device.
Yeah, well, and Uncharted is a very visually interesting game series, so and I think that could run well on a mobile platform.
Absolutely.
The resolution on everybody's screens are just so high nowadays that it would not be too difficult to make that run.
I don't think so either. I think it'd be a perfect fit for it. Let's get on to is PlayStation working on the counterpunch for Game Pass. Now this comes again via David Jaffe. The guy's all over the place today. He says Sony Entertainment is working on a counterpunch to Microsoft popular Xbox Game Pass, says the former senior developer over there. That's according to God of War creator and Twisted Metal co-creator David Jaffe, who claims that he has spoken to a number of sources within PlayStation about the company's plans to respond to Microsoft's subscription service. Game Pass launched back in 2017 has become a central part to becoming Microsoft's gaming focus. Obviously, now just attracting somewhere around, I want to say it's like 20 million subscribers as of this year, which is just a huge industry to be a part of, to hold that mind share each and every day. Like we talk about Game Pass daily, Scott.
Yeah, it is coming up, and it is constantly in the news. Everything's coming to Game Pass. It certainly is sending Xbox the distance in this generation. So I had joked about it, I think a couple episodes ago, that is Sony going to create a Game Pass? Is that really possible? And it seems like it is actually in the wheelhouse, something that may actually happen.
Well, they've said in multiple occasions that the Game Pass model wouldn't work for PlayStation. Speaking to GamesIndustry.biz last September, SIE's boss Jim Ryan claimed a subscription-type model would be unsustainable for PlayStation Studios because it often sees its first-party games budgets grow to well over $100 million.
I like that answer.
Right? Like there's a lot of money to be made, and they're looking to get it back, and that's what they're striving for. Is how do they do that? And if they can't do that, but dude, you take a look at Xbox Game Pass. We all subscribe to it, and that's what we keep touching back on. Is it the subscription model just keeps renewing and keeps renewing and keeps going? And now when you have 20 million users on there, don't you think people want to get the next God of War on your subscription model? I don't know. Jaffe went on to say that he doesn't think that it'll come to PlayStation Now. He thinks they're going to launch some kind of their own service.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't it? Because you invested so much money into Gaikai for a streaming service like this to have for PlayStation Now, and then what are you going to do with PlayStation Now? Just keep it for backlog catalog of games? But then you're having two subscription models. You already play for PlayStation Plus. If you are into the PlayStation Now subscription model, that's two. And if you come out with a third, who's going to want to do that? Or do they bank in with your PlayStation Plus model? That's something I just thought of, and I don't know if that'll actually happen or not. But it's just curious to think, what are they going to do? What is their answer that Sony can take away and that kind of captivate some of that mind share that Microsoft has with this Game Pass? Because we talk about it all the time. They're not really focused about Xbox. They're focused on Game Pass now.
Yeah, they're selling the service more than the hardware now.
Well, exactly. So what do you do? Well, what does PlayStation do now, Scott?
Yeah, they are definitely feeling the pressure, the need to respond in some way. I'm hoping they do it in a creative way that's actually beneficial for their audience and not just a way of mirroring Xbox.
Sure.
Because I think the industry always does better with this competition held properly. If one gets too far away from the other, I think an imbalance happens. That's not good for the consumer.
No, very, very true, right? So that's what I mean. They can't offer 3 different services. Nobody wants to do that. We all complain about how many subscriptions we are into now. Netflix, HBO, Hulu, like all these other services we already have. If you have then Game Pass, you have Xbox Gold, you have PlayStation Plus, you like the list just keeps growing, right? And the last thing people want to do is hear another service come out that they have to subscribe to.
You know, it's reminding me of cable television back in the day. Which channel packages you have and which ones you want, and buy these ones together and string them all. But it's getting a little bit more complicated now. Video games used to just be a little more simpler.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely unique to see it turn around this way. So yeah, keep it simple, PlayStation, and I think people will jump over. They're looking to get the next God of War or Uncharted game on day one through some kind of service. I don't doubt that for a second. We've seen it. The model's working for Xbox, so why wouldn't it work for PlayStation fans? And there's so many PS4 units out there. People are starving for a PS5. I think it's a great idea that they need to kind of come in and do something like this, but we just don't know what the answer is. David Jaffe says they're working on something, and we all figured at some point they would have to counter it somehow, some way for Xbox.
At the same time, though, they better keep those PlayStation 5s coming out of the factory, because that's, I think, their main concern.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Scott, let's get on to game announcements, because, dude, we're going long already. Whew. All right, we're talking about game announcements. Talk about Halo 3 gets a new map. This was over on Twitter. Prepare to go Raven Mad. Season 6 of the Master Chief Collection Edition is here with the newest season, Raven. It's official. And in this new season, you're getting new animated visors, back skins, back accessories, skins, fire team, Raven armor, and more, as well as an updated map for Halo 3. Scott, you jumping back into this?
I had to rub my eyes and read this one a couple times over, because when I caught wind of a new Halo 3 map, didn't that game come out a decade ago?
Yep, it did.
Or more.
Yeah.
But awesome news. I'm a huge Halo fan, so I definitely will need to jump on and check out this new map. It's out of curiosity, if nothing more, but it'll pull me back, I'm sure, into the Chief Collection. That collection just keeps on giving.
Well, that's just it. The new map is called Waterfalls. The latest edition of the Halo Master Chief Collection. It comes alongside numerous other updates for the game. It's just 343 is just going strong, and they're getting it hyped and getting ready for the next Halo Infinite.
Mm-hmm.
We have another game called Alvo. It's this for PS VR, believe it or not. PlayStation VR is getting a 5 versus 5 online shooter game that's set to release on April 13th. So check that one. That one looks competitive. It's also coming to Quest and PSVR 2 when that becomes available. Curious to see where that's going to happen. Yeah, I want to see how the 5v5 works out, because that could be really cool. Well, so that's just the thing with PlayStation VR, and you're doing this 5 versus 5. How do you traverse around the space? Because right now, if you watch the trailer, everybody's walking and they're moving around. They're not teleporting. So I'm curious about the motion sickness in the game, first of all. See how that goes. Yeah. But yeah, definitely curious to see how well that does. I think it'll do much better when it goes on to Oculus and PlayStation VR 2, because you're using analog sticks. I think that might be a lot smoother, because if you're using the Move controllers, then you're limited to your motion. So you see in some games like Walking Dead Onslaught, they'll actually, for you to walk, you actually have to like move your arms up and down, so like you're walking. Here, I don't know how you do that, because it's all button presses, right? You don't have analog sticks on the Move controllers right now, and that's the biggest downfall to PlayStation VR's current status.
Yeah, that is a problem. They really do need to get some thumbsticks working. We've tried out some VR games on Oculus with the thumbsticks, and they work tremendously better than teleporting, in my opinion. As long as you can handle the motion, the thumbstick is the way to go. Even if you do have to kind of power walk your way into sprint, that's still acceptable.
Yeah, for sure. WWE 2K22 is back in the teaser. Rey Mysterio, the high-flying Lucha Libre legend, and one of the most exciting and decorated superstars in WWE history, slips on the iconic mask and enters the ring, sets up for his opponent. This is launching now, and it's got a tagline of it hits different. So this is coming soon. There's no official release date, but if you are a WWE fan, they are back. Because I believe, Scott, they took last year off.
Well, and it hits different, maybe a reference to a lot of things. There's a lot of entertainment that's been upset by the pandemic, and for the last year, everything's been a little different now.
Yeah, for sure. But there's a little WWE action for you. It hits different. It says it's coming soon, but who knows what that is. Scott, that's almost the show. Why don't we get into what games are out for today? But nothing is coming on consoles, man?
Yeah, a bit confusing. It's another day where the releases are very thin and hard to come across, but we have found some PC releases.
Okay.
And I'm going to run down the list here. We have some interesting titles. There is Sato Dreams, Island World, Sandcastles, Village Defender, Endless Furry Asteroids, Tachyon Wars, Dangerous Chris, Prisoner 17, Cosmo Drive Infinity, Tank Quest, and Inner Tab.
Wow. That's man, you never know what some of these titles are. Crazy to think what's here. Anything stand out to you?
Sandcastles sounds pretty interesting, actually.
Nice. You should check that out. But that'll wrap up today's show. Everybody, thank you for hanging out with us. This is ITG Daily for April 12th. Don't forget, you can follow us over on Twitter at the official ITG. Join us live, submit your questions, and of course, watch us on streaming TV platforms around the world. Again, thanks for everybody for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow inside the game.